Hi, y'all. This is Liz today with Smart Business Moves, and I'm here with Matt Ricketts. Doesn't that sound weird? It's always Tom. Tom's always here, and he's introducing us. So, hey, Matt, I'm so glad you were able to come today and help me out here. Let me see if I can figure out how to get some of my comments and stuff up. That's not it. All right, we'll see if I see everything as it comes in. You remember, Matt, over on the right-hand side, you can see your comments.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
You see it? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, Matt, we talked to you guys yesterday. Hey, Leslie. We talked to y'all yesterday that Matt was going to come on here today and talk about some unique perspectives about how he's managing money. Y'all know that Matt is well known for managing his money well. And so he's going to bring us some fresh perspectives about, I think, PPP, Matt, and then also earned income tax credit, right?
Sure, we can talk about that a little bit, and we can even talk a little bit about some of the strategies that I think about as far as income. I would almost say, I don't want to say like what I consider my living income, but I basically believe I can live on 40% of what I pay myself, and the rest goes into savings. We can talk a little bit about that, and about being able to carry forward some of these strategies so that you can weather good times and bad, and not get too ahead of yourselves. Because I feel like early on in business, oftentimes when we would start making more money, I would start, and I'd make the same mistakes everyone would. I'd be like, I'm going to start spending more money.
Right.
So those are some strategies with all this money that might be available to us now. It can be a little bit confusing as to what to do with it, how to spend it, and some things. So not that I'm going to tell you how to spend your money, but I'll talk a little bit about what we do and how we kind of are thinking through, how some of this money is going to be potentially, a big boost, and how we can potentially not overspend it and make any big mistakes with all this money coming in.
Well, I think you're making a good point too, that when you get a chunk of money like this, it can be seductive. You can feel like, wow, I've got all this money. I can spend it on whatever I want. I mean, it's a big joke, right, about going out and buying a sports car.
Sure.
But people are actually doing things like moving their money around and making some big purchases. And the government is kind of pushing people in that way too, right? Got to keep the economy going. And, that's why we're putting this money out there. So people are feeling a little bit like, I'm helping by spending all this money.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I hope everyone by now has determined whether they qualify for PPP. And so, applications are kind of on a little bit of a hold right now. I guess I can't remember if it was for companies with 20 employees or less. So some of the people watching today might kind of fall into this window where we're kind of in an exclusive application period for smaller businesses. But
the whole thing ends at the end of the month, right? So we had some people yesterday that hadn't applied yet, and they were a little bit bigger.
Yeah. March 31st is the end of the first quarter, is the application to apply for the second round of PPP. So, 90-day window here to do it. They may extend it. There's a lot of money left over right now. So they may extend that out. I wouldn't anticipate a third round, though. I think this is probably.
Yeah. So, Matt, what are your thoughts for the? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying? This is probably what?
This is probably the last one. Take advantage of this if you can. And then we can talk about ERC in a little bit too, about how that is coming into play.
Well, I'd like to hear your perspective for the people that are thinking, well, I don't really need the money right now. Yes, I qualify, but I don't need it. So they're talking about maybe not taking the money. What are your thoughts there?
I would take it. I would bonus your employees significantly. I just gave out, $30,000 in bonuses to my employees based on longevity and performance. I know some other friends that gave out bigger bonuses than that, almost $45,000 in bonuses out of their PPP money. So like 25, they took 20 to 25% of it and said, I'm going to use this towards, retaining key employees. And you never know if that is going to pay off or not, but it's an investment in your people, and saying thank you for, this has been a tough year for them too. I mean, they've weathered some, some challenges. So that's one way you could take the money and really think about rewarding some of your people. You could think about raising your base pay to be more competitive, and using that money to strategically allow you to make a couple of price increases before you can really, jump up and afford what you're going to pay people. I think we're going to have to be closer to $15 or $16 an hour on pay nationwide if you're in larger cities before much longer, even without increases in minimum wage. You're seeing Costco raising its base pay to $16 an hour. Amazon oftentimes follows that. So you're gonna, you're not just gonna end up pocketing this money. You're gonna use it to make some strategic moves, right? Some smart business moves to put you in a position to get better employees, probably, so that you're worth more money in the marketplace. Those are things that I'm doing right now. So I'm getting ready to do a 5% price increase to all my clients, and I'm already fairly priced well. But I've identified 329 clients that are probably eligible and due for price increases out of our client lists, and so we're going to go through those and look at data, real data that we've pulled from Made Central of how many hours we're spending there. Are we on target? Are we over target? If we don't need to bill them anymore because we're consistently charging them more than we're actually spending in their home, I'm not going to go down on their price if they're happy, but I'm gonna hold the line for them a little bit longer and not do a price increase. Or if I do one, I would just maybe do it for like 1%, maybe just something just to let them know that there's something, maybe $1 or $2.
Do it.
Right, just to put something.
Are you using the new normalizing functionality? Because
I would have to get a refresher code on what that all means. I read a post about it, and I've forgotten since what normalized average hours mean. So I don't remember. Yeah. So I guess it's kind of.
That's okay. I was just curious.
I think the normalized average hours is like if you had like your average employees on that property. So Made Central has this really cool feature where you can basically pick out a time period, like anyone that hasn't had a price increase in a certain amount of time, so like 12 months, anyone that lives in certain areas. You can break it out all these different ways by zones, by how frequently they're clean. Let's say you don't want to raise your weekly prices, but you want to raise all your monthly prices. Like let's say you're just like, monthlies are underbid in general, so you could sort it like that. But there's what Liz was mentioning was there's this thing called normalized average hourly. Yeah. So if you have an employee that's really fast on that house, that is consistently under budget but still does a good job, well, it actually tells you, hey, this employee does it at 1.8 hours, but realistically, your average employee taking out all the data of all your employees, how long they take, would take 2.25 hours. So it's bid properly. It's not underbid. It's a pretty cool feature. Now you kind of reminded me of what it all meant, but that
was a really good recap, Matt. That was super fast and super easy. I like what you said, because it just is saying your average employee would really take this amount of time, so it's probably not underbid. And I really think that's valuable, because so many times you get those employees that are really fast. And you guys all know, Leslie, I know you've been in business forever. I'm guaranteeing you have some employees that are like that are super fast, do a really good job, always have really good scorecards, but you don't really want to be thinking that that's the average amount of time that it's going to take to clean that house, because just this fast gal over here does it that way.
Yeah, all right. It's a cool feature. So
I do too.
But yeah, looking at all that data, we're looking at all that and looking at strategically raising the prices by about 10%. So we need to get our prices from about $50 an hour to about $55 an hour. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
We need to get it. Yeah, it rings on my computer sometimes when I don't pick it up on my phone. So we need to get our prices from about $50 to about $55 an hour. But one way that we did this right away was we raised, because we're just so booked, we raised deep clean prices from $50 to $65 for all
Whoa.
yeah,
Wow.
for
That's
all
a big jump.
for all one-time work. If they're just booking us for a one-time cleaning, we're charging them $65 an hour.
Okay.
And that way, our technicians are making, because we do a fee split, are making way more.
Fee split is percentage, right? For those not in the Maid Central world. Yeah.
It's percentage pay. So 24, so 37% of that goes to the technicians, or 38%, I'm sorry, goes to the technicians under our system. So that's about $24 per hour for a technician, of cleaning time on deep cleans. So now, instead of making like $18.50 on regular homes while they're cleaning, or $19 an hour, they can make almost $25. Well, they're actually happy to do deep cleans because there's a little bit of a differential. We're charging a little bit more, and so
a lot more.
We will discount deep cleans if they sign up for weekly or alternating weekly service, but not monthly. So if like somebody signs up for monthly service, they want a deep clean, they're paying the rack rate of $65 an hour, but we'll discount 20% off that to get it closer to $50 an hour, and then we'll just eat that by paying the employees more on the deep cleans, like as if they're getting paid $65 an hour.
The 65.
Yeah, so we just take
you're kind of two birds with one stone there, because your employees are getting charged more. You're also controlling the amount of work. You're keeping space available for your recurring cleans versus just piling on all the single work for your schedule. It sounds like a win. I never ever would have thought, though, to raise from 50 to 65. That's big. So I wrote that down.
We thought about going to 80, but we didn't think we thought that would price us out of the market a little bit. But I mean, at 65, I'd have to pull up my numbers, but I looked at how many recurring sales we've had. So some of you guys use point systems. I know Derek, Derek created the system where a weekly counts for 4 points, or this, a bi-weekly is 2 points, whatever. We've had basically the equivalent of 19 weekly jobs added since the beginning of February, which would be like 36 points or something like. No, it would be like almost 80 points, 76 points.
19 weekly? Yeah,
we haven't got 19 weeklies, but the way the Maid Central tracks it is it gives you
down by week.
Yeah, how many jobs a week, and you think about that. That's 2 employees we've needed to hire basically. So we. For every, I like thinking of it as in terms of jobs per week that we've added, because 10 jobs per week tells me I need to hire 1 employee, or be planning on hiring 1 employee, or else I realize that my availability of one-time cleans is going to continue to shrink. So, we're booking at least 2 weeks out, even with that $65 an hour. So a lot of things are working for us in the sense that consumers have become more patient during this pandemic in waiting for things. I ordered a garage door 6 months ago, and I haven't gotten it yet. And I'm
waiting on a freezer.
What?
I'm waiting on a freezer right now. I still don't have it. Hey, well, we got a couple of questions here, Matt. So then Danita has a question. PayPal submitted she submitted their app to the SBA 10 days ago and hasn't heard anything. Do you think she should hit them up again, or don't worry about it, or what do you think?
I would, if there's a process to inquire where it is in the status, I don't think it would hurt to find out, if it's been submitted to the SBA, and then, then the SBA would, the steps would be that your bank would get it, they'd approve it, then they would submit it to the SBA. The SBA would then review it and then approve it or deny it. So I guess, if they've submitted it and you haven't got anything back, it's not a bad thing. It just could be the SBA's backed up.
As long as you saw that it was submitted.
You said that it was submitted to the SBA.
Yeah. As long as you're sure that it was submitted, you saw something, PayPal, that you got something. You weren't just assuming that. So
it's probably beyond PayPal's control at this point. And they're probably just doing, SBA is just doing their due diligence. They're doing their thing. But mine was turned around fairly quickly from the point we submitted to the SBA. I think it was like 3 days. So
ours was fast.
It was very fast, but I would not, worry too much. But you could inquire with them if you haven't heard anything by Friday. I would hope that it would be. I hope it would be pretty quick.
And Denit's also in this 2-week window where they might have gotten a big influx, Denit, because they had, they opened up this window specifically for your size company. So maybe that's it. But I love Matt's advice. We haven't heard something by Friday. Maybe just double check in. And Denit has a. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
As far as pricing recurring cleans, Denit, I mean, we use kind of the Made Central formulas, and basically it tells us how many minutes each room's going to take on for deep clean. We've kind of based that on our experience and based it on that. But basically, I think that we consider a deep clean roughly 2.5 times a maintenance clean is kind of our rule of thumb. But instead of charging our rack rate of $50 an hour, we charge $65 per hour. So again, about 2.5 times. I think anywhere from 2 to 2.5 is going to win you business. If you double to 2.5 times your recurring price on your deep cleans. Some people, and I know, successfully sell them at 4 times their recurring clean prices, and I think that's a strategy that works for some people, but I want to make my deep clean something that is useful and helps their house get ready, but I also not price this out of winning that business regularly. We just set expectations of what's going to happen usually, and that works pretty well for us, and we're rarely have any problems that we can't solve, and if we do, I'm usually willing to let it go because it's just such a small percentage of the overall business. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It kind of depends on whether or not you're winning them. I know that Carrie Knight's strategy is not to charge anything. She doesn't charge anything for those initials. She just charges the same recurring fee, and then she sort of rotates through all of the rooms to get everything deep cleaned over time, because she wants to win every single bi-weekly. She doesn't want to let even one of them go. So kind of depends on what your strategy is there, maybe how booked you are.
Yeah, my thoughts are on this is that we allow people to come on without deep cleans, and we will promise to catch up what we can over time, but we don't charge for that. But it's not like they're going to get their house is not going to be magically deep cleaned. It's going to take, maybe 3, 4, 5 months before we, get the house where we would want it. And sometimes really never, and they're okay with that. They just, they're very conscious of price, and it's very helpful for us to come in and do what we can. And they don't need a perfect house. Their house wasn't perfect to start with. They're not expecting lick the clean floors, for what they're paying for. It really depends on the psychology of the customer. If you can really tell that they have really high expectations, you're going to really want to start them with that deep clean. If it's a busy family with 3 kids and a dog, 4 kids and a dog, they're gonna probably be actually more just happy to have the help. So I think there's some psychology of the customer, but what we always do is we allow them to book just recurring service. We recommend the deep clean, and we sell probably half of our new customers on getting a deep clean to start with, but it's not required, and it works for us to go that direction. It's just psychology of it.
Yeah. My favorite line for this is to say, absolutely, we don't require it, but if you're wanting to come home on that first day and get the big wow, then you're going to want to pay for the deep clean. Otherwise, you're going to come home and your house is going to be clean, but you're not going to get that feeling of, oh, wow, this is so awesome. And 95% of the time, they're like, I want that. I want the big wow. All right, well, the big wow is going to cost you this much money. And people
where are you at? Do you think you're 2.5 to 4 times somewhere?
2.5. Ours is exactly 2.5. We go up to 3, but we never hit the 4. I mean, I'm not going to say never. If some place is completely trashed and an older place hasn't been cleaned in years, you got a master shower that hasn't been cleaned in 2 years. Yeah, it might take that long. But
I can think of 2 companies off the top of my head that I know have very effectively. They won't start people without a deep clean, and they're at 4x, and they're selling them. Although I think their base pricing is lower, I think their hourly pricing is in the $38 to $40.
Oh, well, that makes total sense then.
Yeah, so I think that their markets are smaller markets where there's a little bit more competition on price on hourly rate. So that kind of comes into play a little bit too. So there's so many factors that kind of go into how that all goes.
Well, and Robin is saying that she's charging 75. And Robin, I think you're probably talking about 75 for your singles or your one-time cleans there. And for anybody that's wondering on here, especially smaller companies, I'm guessing that Robin is talking about $75 per labor hour, per maid hour. So you got 2 people in the house for 1 hour, that's $150. So a lot of times there's still some confusion around that.
Yeah, so like for us, we won't go into a house for less than $260 now. Like, so our minimum to even show up for, to do for a one-time job is $260. Like, we won't even. Wow. It's not even really worth it because there's just so much demand, and we would just be missing other opportunities at this point. So I like that. So whatever you can do in the market bears. I think that. We thought that there was just going to be this glut of employees that was going to be, raining down.
Talk about being wrong about something, right? Oh my God.
That was like, that prediction was way off. I mean, that was my initial thoughts. I was thinking 2008, I never had a better staff,
Yeah, us too. I was so excited about it. But who could have guessed that they were going to be giving out $600 a week? And then who would have guessed that they were going to extend it through, forever and a day? I was going to say, one of the things that we do is we charge a premium $75 an hour for next day. So if you want like service tomorrow, it's going to be $75 an hour. But if you can put it off for a few days, and I don't mind rolling a job from, like, tomorrow is booked, but if you're going to pay me $75 an hour, I'll roll one of my $55 an hour jobs to the next day and get you clean.
It's flexible, and you could give them a little bonus, an extra.
People love to get the extra money. They're like, woo! Yeah. Which I think we all know that those deep cleans a lot of times are harder and they're not as fun to do, maybe. So
yeah, I think that's a good strategy. I think, it comes to mind of something me and Tom talk a lot about, of like trying to solve with software, but some of these things are just things you can solve with SOPs, right? Like by having, all right, well, when this comes up, do this. So these are things that, like, me and Tom have been talking about with software. Is like, all right, somebody wants to book next day and they want, first thing of the day. Well, the software should, add some 20% multiple for that if there's an availability. Because chances are somebody that wants next day will pay it, and probably will be a pain in the butt in other ways too. So you're taking on more risk. You need to average out that risk a little bit, by charging more. Think about going to the airport and buying a ticket same day. What do they charge you? It's astronomical, right?
It's crazy. Yeah, you're paying big money.
That booked out 6 months ago, that's flexible, that that the guy that walks up that day and wants to buy a ticket somewhere, that guy's paying 50 to 100% more than everyone else on that plane. So that's the way dynamic pricing works in the airlines. They've been doing it for years. I would love to solve that issue with software, but you can certainly start solving it with just SOPs, by like what Liz is talking about, of the standard operating procedures of hey, we're going to charge more for this. So, but this all kind of circles back to what to do with strategy-wise, what to do with your PPP money. I think, I think investing in your people, making some investments in them to try and retain and attract better people, and then in part of that strategy is raising your prices, and not being scared to do so at this time, because all of us are booking out 2-3 weeks. I mean, if your bookings slow down a little bit because you're a little high, then you might dial it back 10% or something like that. But you can experiment a little bit right now and try some new things with pricing, and you might be surprised that people are willing to pay it, because I've gotten a couple calls in the last week of people wanting to go out of business and me to buy their book of business, and we're adding so many customers right now. I mean, we added. So far this month, I think I have the spreadsheet open.
Well, didn't you just say like 39 weeklies?
39, over the 2 months, 39 weekly spots have been filled. So far this month to date, we've sold 21 new recurring customers. Last month, like total recurring customers in the last month's over 60 recurring customers, basically, I think is what we're is what we're looking at this point.
Wow, that's a lot. Where are you getting them, Matt?
Uh,
What are your lead sources?
A lot of Facebook marketing. I still use an ad agency for that. A lot of AdWords still. That's still doing well for us. Probably our top sources are Facebook. Our long-term SEO strategy, which right now is mostly trying to maintain position through just getting more reviews, directory listings. But more people are becoming competitive, so we're going to probably start spending some money on that again. And AdWords.
Well, everybody doesn't have employees. That's the thing, that nobody has employees. So the reason why we can win jobs is other places are putting them on a wait list, the 2-3 week wait list. So
we're telling them that they can't take new customers at all. I mean, I'm hearing that quite a bit. But they're just not even. I mean, they would be smart to be taking wait lists, but they're not even. They're just like, we're booked. We're not. We have no.
Don't have any room. Yeah. Robin is saying also. Okay. Yeah. It's taking more time than the first round. I have heard that from a few different people and asking for more information. So yeah, don't be surprised, Denise. And Carol is saying, wow, 50 of our clients, not one person responded negatively. Usually a few try to negotiate. And I don't mind the negotiations either, but yeah, a lot of people are finding that there's nothing. People are just like, oh, okay. And they're understanding, especially if you reference the additional PPE, then people are like, oh, I get it. My dentist charges an additional $10 every visit for additional PPE, which really doesn't make sense to me because my dentist was already wearing masks. They were already wearing gloves. They were already doing all of these things. So, but I talked to my dentist and she says now they change their masks in between each client, where before they would wear the same mask all day long. They change uniforms twice a day, which is like, wow, all right. Just because they're touching people and they're in everybody's space. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. But initially I was like, what? $10
I think if you really add up what all the extra costs are that we've incurred, it's probably $3 or $4 a clean, that you really have to think about that. And that all kind of gets into your bottom line eventually. It's not about greed. It's about long-term survivability and long-term basically having good financial fundamentals of business.
Yeah.
So I don't think raising prices. So normally I'd go 3%. We're going to do 5% now, and probably 5% again towards the end of the year, which will be effectively an 11% price increase in 1 year. We might do 5% and 4% later, so it's like an effective 10%. But either way, it's significant this year. We're planning it in 2 stages.
We did 4%. So we do them every month. So we've been doing 4%, and we're talking about raising it now to 5%. So same thing, get an effective 10% there. Robin, she doesn't want to change subject. We'll come back to money. Don't worry, Robin. You can change subject. Anybody staff getting vaccines yet? I have had 2 staff get vaccines, but we can get them. Ours opened up a little bit easier than some states. I know. Some states are having an easier time, but I know like in Colorado, they're still in, I want to say phase 1, maybe to 2, but you have to have 2 criteria to be able to get on the list right now in Colorado. Here, it's kind of easy.
It's moving a little faster. I've had a few employees, but I
don't find one.
I wouldn't. I don't have any kind of policy that's encouraging it or anything at this time. I feel like more and more people are becoming receptive to it. I don't feel like it's not. I don't think it's anything that's going to need to be pushed. If people want to get it, they'll get it. The numbers are definitely trending the right way.
Oh yeah.
We're seeing. I feel like you could create a whole consumer index of what's the consumer confidence index, right? You could create one just based on how much they're spending on getting their house cleaned and how many new customers are getting. So that if there was a consumer confidence index based on that, I would say that's moving in the right direction.
For sure.
Vaccinations, I feel like if you look at the statistics, the vaccine hesitancy is down to like probably 30-40%, and there's probably 25% of people that are never going to get it. They're just going to take their chances, and so we're gonna get to herd immunity one way or another, whether it's through enough people getting this or enough people getting the vaccine. And I feel like we're probably at about 50% now, and that's why you're seeing the trends moving in the right directions. The vaccine really accelerated. I think it's about 18% of people have had at least one shot now. On top of probably 30% of people have already had COVID. So you're probably pushing 50% of the population has
some antibodies of some type of immunization.
Cell immunity or antibody immunity of some kind. Yes, you're talking about the disease is going to continue to decline. So I'm, again, long answer here, but the short answer would be I am seeing some employees doing it. I'm going to continue to message that I think it's important that they do. That they're doing their part to help protect others, and that even if they're young and healthy, it is an important step in getting our lives back to normal. And I think just messaging that out to your employees, being willing to get it yourself. If you're vaccine hesitant, I think that's going to translate to your employees as well. I have managers that I don't think will get vaccinated anytime soon, at least. So, one already had COVID, so she's probably not gonna, be a spreader. But I have another one that I don't think will, and again, I don't have any reason to push that down her throat. But it's it would be nice if she would, and I would hope she would set that example. But she's not gonna. We've talked about not sharing any negative feelings about that with the staff.
Well, look at Linda. She's saying that 2/3 of her staff aren't planning on getting the vaccine. So that's a pretty big number there to plan on not getting the vaccine. That's interesting.
She's probably drawing more of her staff from rural areas or highly urban areas. So there was the statistic in Missouri that this is early on, even like when there was a lot more people eligible, but less than 3% of the African American population had been vaccinated at this early point, when they were like a large portion was eligible and should have had it. A much higher, proportion. And so there's some vaccine hesitancy in different communities for different reasons. So hopefully that declines over time, and you might get that to 50% of your staff get vaccinated. And I think that would be helpful. It's going to be very hard to mandate that to people, and some companies will be able to, but I don't know about in our industry if that's going to be something you're going to be able to affect.
Well, I was thinking about, because I would like to be able to say that all our people are vaccinated, just because I think it would be a boost for a lot of people, similar to what Robin is saying, that she's having people ask if her people are vaccinated. So I was thinking of offering some type of an incentive to get the vaccination. Don't really know what, but right now I've got PPP money, so
give
my
them
people like money too.
Give them 4 hours of pay. You could do, or give them paid time off to go get the shot.
I was going to give them an entire day off. Get a paid day off. Get your shot on that day. You get paid to do it, and you get the whole day's pay. So
those are things that you could do that would pay off, and you're talking about that probably cost you about $140 or something like that if you're averaging like 15 to 16 bucks an hour. With because you're gonna have some taxes and stuff tacked onto that, but that's a nominal cost if you can get everyone in your workplace or nearly everyone vaccinated. I think that would be it would be great. 100% compliance would be ideal, but I don't know that will happen.
I would love 100%, but really I'd take 80%. Who hasn't been impacted by this last minute, right? People are like, I'm sick and I have to go and take off for the next 5 days until I get the results of my test. Blah,
and
blah, blah.
Anytime there's an exposure and you have to quarantine and all that stuff. So while that's going down, I still had 3 exposures in the last 2 weeks. where we had people we couldn't have working because we wanted to make sure that we're, again, continuing to strictly follow the rules. And 2, that were feeling sick and went and got tested and were tested negative. But still,
can I take a chance still?
Yeah, I think it's
take a chance.
So, but again, if they're vaccinated and they've got a little bit of a sniffle, okay, take the day off, feel better, but you don't have COVID at that point, or it's very
unlikely.
Yeah,
right. Very unlikely. So it's less to worry about.
Yeah, I think it would be nice. So if you can drive that number down from 2/3 to 1/3 in the next few months, and then people realize that there's not any more COVID pay that's going away. I think June 1st. So into the second quarter, all that extra pay that we've been given to, those credits we've been given to give people for COVID exposure, for taking care of kids, for all that stuff, that's going away. So then it's just going to be down to their sick pay and their PTO
or unemployment, or whatever they're going to do. But
but it's going to be. I don't know when they extended the federal unemployment till. I think it's till the end of June. So it's they extended that from, it was supposed to end.
I thought it was September.
Oh God. I think you might be right.
I think it's September. Yeah.
It's supposed to end on midnight on this Sunday, the extra unemployment that's currently in effect. So they've extended that on for a while. That's a whole other issue as far as there's a bit of a drag on incentive to come back to work and things like that, depending on how stringent your state kind of follows those procedures. So yeah.
Robin's saying the same thing as me, that September, he heard the same thing. So, okay. So if COVID hasn't taught us by now that we cannot read the future, then we need to learn that lesson. We all really thought that we were going to have all of these employees. We talked about that, which is why I really like your strategy, Matt, of going from $50 to $65 and sort of jumping in front of that problem. We're not going to be having more employees right now. At least we don't want to be counting on them. So that means we need to be maximizing the amount of money that we're making from the people that we currently have. And nobody else is going to have more employees either right now. So we need to be able to, or we can charge more, and we have to charge more because we don't know how long it's going to be until we're in a different position.
One of the things that I've mentioned on this show before and talked about is just the investment in hiring people. So there was a time where I thought it was crazy when people had all this staff that had been with them for all these years, but now I think I'm close to, out of about 29 technicians currently, I'd say I know I have at least 18 that have been with us for a year or more, and I know that at least 2 more have anniversaries this month. So 20 out of 29 at least have been with us for a year or more, and then obviously all of our management. So
that's a lot during COVID.
Yeah. So again, it's a lot less expensive to hire when you only need to hire to grow. What's the old adage? You got to hire 4 to keep 1, basically, in this industry.
Yeah, 41.
That's a tired statistic, and if you can find ways to cut that number down on the front end by doing a better job hiring and get it down to, let's say 75% of everyone you hire makes it 30 days. If you can get that to that number, right? And let's say that 30 or 40% of everyone you hire lasts a year, right?
Yeah.
That would be crazy. So I will tell you this, this was our lowest number of W-2s of our entire company history. So we had close to 50. Yeah, we had close to 50 employees when this all started, but we only had 75 W-2s this year, and we had like 159 the year before. So, obviously COVID had some part in that, but a lot of it was we'd already started this process of really tightening up our hiring. And again, you can pay people more when you hire better people because they'll stay longer, they'll produce more.
They'll do better work.
They'll do better work, and you can charge more for it. I think we've all been in this nightmare death spiral of like, oh, we can't pay more because people won't pay more. But honestly, I mean, you're talking about, you don't think someone will pay $20 more to not have someone that looks like that looks like they know what they're doing. They show up in uniform. They look professional. They act professional. They are consistent. They do the same job every time. You don't think someone would pay you $20 more for that versus I have a temp agency that works down the street from me that they strictly hire temps that are ex-cons and stuff like that. I mean, that's all that's going to be left for the $11 an hour jobs for some of the commercial work. I had one of my commercial jobs that pays us like $10,000 a month, kind of putting some pressure on us about our hourly rate. And I was just like, I told him, I was like, look, you go out and you try and hire a $15 an hour employee right now, and you come back and talk to me about this. I'm not that worried about losing you right now. I want to keep your business, but I can easily tell you that the days of finding commercial jobs where someone comes in and bids this at $11 an hour and you're happy with who shows up in the door, where they're paying their employees $11 an hour and undercutting us on wages. And we did this in a nicer way than that. We talked about the realities of what's going on in the marketplace. And I was like, look, I can probably put some cheaper people on here, but they're not going to be as good. And I don't really
They're not going to be happy.
I don't want to put my name on it, but I can't keep Precious down here. I can't keep James down here. I can't keep, all these great people that are down on this property if that's the case, because they've got to make more.
They're too good to make that much money. They deserve more for what they're doing.
I've wanted to, so to be honest, I actually kind of want to move away. I do want to move away from some of the commercial work we do because it is, there's too much downward pressure on wages, and I could find more work for those people, making more money for the company long term than some of the commercial work where, we're only billing out at, $27 an hour, which seems crazy to me. And even though you are so much more efficient in your time with commercial works, you can charge less. It still needs to be closer to like $35 to $40 an hour, and they're not prepared. Most of those places are not prepared.
Right.
Those big jumps up.
Mm-mm. They would rather pay less and have, especially for your commercial and janitorial that's being done at night when no one's in the office. They're much less sensitive to how people look.
I think that what they're going to also have to really consider is bringing the work in-house and managing the chaos of hiring and training their own people if they're going to be very price conscious, because they can control the cost more, but they're going to have to deal with the turnover. But if they're willing to pay us $30 an hour, if that's what it would cost, then they can hire somebody at $22 an hour with taxes and everything else, and that would be a very attractive pay. I just don't think that's where they want to put their energy is in hiring and training and doing all that stuff. Right. It would be a whole new business for them to get into, and they typically don't want that piece of it. So
it's a different job then. They're all of a sudden in a different business. Linda, answer to your question, I personally would pay both sides. I would pay one on one and one on the other versus 2 day of and day after on the second one, even though I understand that the second vaccination tends to cause people a little bit more trouble. Robin wants to know about ERTC updates, Matt. What's ERTC? Is that the tax credits?
ERC, yeah, the employee retention credits. ERC was expanded under the stimulus prior to this, which allowed us that took PPP the first time to also take these credits if we were eligible. And the rules there were these financial tests, and then there was these government order tests. So originally, you had to have a decline in business of 50%. Well, I meet that test for Q2 of whatever. But a lot of people are under the belief, and a lot of the companies the company that I'm using for processing my tax credit is called Synergy. But there's a ton of these companies that do this, and you can see if your payroll provider has one that's tied in, where they'll take a portion of the fee to manage this for you, to do all the. They'll basically take. They'll actually take legal responsibility for making sure that you're eligible. Now, you would have to give the money back if they're wrong, but they would have to pay the penalties, right? So they'll take on legal responsibility for determining your eligibility. And one of the things that is actually interesting is that even if you were never forced to close, government orders affected your business. They affected your business, your ability to hold meetings. to have in-person staffing. So you could no longer have more than, at one point, you could no longer have more than 5 people in a building in my area. So we had to shift our model to the solo model, all these different things, the way to do.
Your cars.
School closures has been a big deal.
Huge.
If you're in a major metropolitan area, there's a good chance your schools are just getting back open now. Would that be accurate where you're at, or have they been open for the
Nope, ours just opened 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so school closures,
and they're not open full time. Ours aren't open full time yet. Yeah.
So those are all considered government orders that could have affected your business, and so Gusto does your payroll, Danit. So I would ask Gusto if they're helping with last year to refile your 941s. So what you have to do is you have to first determine your eligibility through either government order test or through tests of declines in revenue. So government orders is actually easier to hit than declines in revenue for a lot of us. So a lot of us are actually eligible for the ERC credits and didn't really realize it.
I didn't until Tom.
Yeah. So if you are forced to shut down for any period of time, that's a government order. That applies to a lot of us. If you had school closures, or if there's limits on gatherings, if there's all these different things can qualify. Now if you're in Iowa where they didn't do any statewide orders, okay, look to your local orders. See if there's local orders that apply to you. If you're in some town where they didn't do any local orders, nothing ever changed, well, then probably you're out of luck. But if there's any population density where you're at, typically there's some sort of government order that you might want to look into. I'm a big fan of negotiating with these companies that are managing these things because they take on what is it called? The legal status that they take for you is power of attorney, POA. So they take power of attorney to do this. And with that power of attorney, they guarantee that you're in compliance. And so what I'm going to do is I've already got my numbers back for last year. It's significant. It's actually bigger than around the PPP for 2020. Nice. It is a significant amount of money. There's no restrictions on it, although it is taxable. So I'm going to take the money, set aside 25 to 30% for taxes, and then set the rest aside to do something with that is fairly low risk, which would be potentially hold it for a year or pay off my house or do something else with that money that I can get it back if the government says back. I lose you there?
You're cutting in and out just a little bit.
Okay, so I was kind of saying, just doing something low risk. Like I wouldn't put it into anything you couldn't get back out, or there might be some potential loss in case there's ever a clawback on this. But I feel like if you go through one of these companies and you're eligible, chances of that happening are very low. If you do it yourself and you're not clear, there is some complication to this. I mean, the packet that we put together, kind of proving our eligibility, was fairly significant. And the calculations are tricky too, because you want to try and maximize your weeks of eligibility. So you want to minimize the amount of weeks of PPP forgiveness you had in 2020. And when they changed the rules from either having to take an 8 or a 24-week forgiveness period, I narrowed mine down to as short a week forgiveness period and got it down to 11 weeks. So that means that I had a lot more weeks eligible for ERC.
ERC, right?
Okay. For last year, that was about 5,000 per employee. Was what you could get. And nice. If you had a lot of turnover, that might have worked in your benefit because
even better.
Perhaps because you max out a lot of people at some point. So if you had a lot of turnover, it might have worked out in your benefit.
Well, and I know that a lot of people did have a lot of turnover just because a lot of people in our industry have parents with kids. And all of a sudden, the kids weren't in school and parents had to stay home. So I ran into that a lot. We did get a lot of them back after the monies kind of ran out, especially that $600 additional federal money per week. But it's still a bit of a challenge. And even our daycare stayed closed for a really long time. So it's hard to get people back to work when, they just don't have anybody to watch their kids.
Yeah, I think I would be very conservative with this money when it comes in. And again,
You tend to be a more conservative person with your money anyway, Matt. You're not a flying high and loose.
I'm not going to buy a Tesla. I mean, so we were buying a house last year, and we were approved for some obscene amount of money, and we ended up spending like under half of what they approved us for, because just because the bank says you can get a mortgage for that just didn't make sense for us to go that route. So yeah, very, very much so. Don't really feel like you have to, live. I don't know. I think there's some expectations of how much house you're supposed to have, like signs of success, different cars, things like that. The only person that matters to is you. And, all those things in the end, we want to enjoy our lives, make enough money to be able to be successful. But, my goal is to be able to have enough money in the bank that I'm generating a reasonable income in the next 10 years that I don't have to work if I don't want to. So you can't do that if you're spending every dollar that comes in,
Right.
So that's my eventual goal.
Yeah, so that's definitely how we have always looked at our money. Is we're comfortable. We don't really need more. So Tim and I have really never had like brand new cars. We almost always buy like at least a 2-year-old car, 3-year-old car. They're like new to us when we get them. Now, every once in a while, Tim does have he's got a little bit of a car obsession. So sometimes, he has had some very nice cars. I think everybody's heard about his Ferrari, and he's got a 68 Camaro, and he's got, so he does get a few nice cars here and again.
Cars, those are already depreciated in the sense that they're whatever. If there was depreciation, that's already off them, and then now their collectability makes them more valuable in the sense, that they're a rare commodity. So it's not like going out and buying a brand new Tesla and
right.
I could make a rationale for buying a Tesla, and I may buy something like that, like an electric car in the next couple of years, mostly because I am investing in solar in my house, and in the next few years, electric cars plugged into your house could actually be the backup battery. So when that situation happened in Texas, your car would power your house because the battery banks are so big on those things.
Yeah,
it could power your house for a day. So the solar would charge your car during the day, and then the batteries from your car would power your house at night.
Or like a generator. It would.
Yeah. I mean, basically. So yeah. I mean, I can make the. I think the leap is going to happen that we're going to be probably all buying cars similar to Teslas in the next few years. That's where the technology is going. My point is, you don't have to have the highest brand name, fanciest things, and still be enjoying things. So like we did, but also I am never afraid to do some things that are a little out there if I think I can get a return on the purchase. If I buy an RV and want to enjoy it, I'll buy a 10-year-old used Class A RV and drive it for 2 years and then sell it for almost what I paid for it. You're gonna spend some money on that, but buying stuff, it's just different choices. But I don't want to, if somebody likes to buy new cars, buy new cars. If you're making the money to do it, I just suggest having a strategy that's going to allow you to not have to work your whole life. And so that's my thinking on money. Typically is, nice nest egg, nice, be prepared for a rainy day. And just because you're making $300,000 this year does not mean you're going to make that forever. You could decline by 50% and be able to live on less than what you're making now, because as entrepreneurs, we don't have total control over all the things that have made us successful to this point. We like to think we do. Some of it's a mix of being at the right place at the right time, though, too. It's, we're not doing the most original thing here. We're cleaning houses. So some of it is right time, right place. Some of it is we've built a better mousetrap. We've done it better than our competitors. It's not, I don't want to take away anything from anyone. You guys are doing awesome. But the market could change. It has in years past.
Well, and that's my point right now. Just because the numbers are going down and most people are thinking, yay, COVID's behind us now, it's going to be something we don't have to worry about.
Sure.
We just don't know. I mean, maybe you guys are really, really confident. I'm less confident because I've been wrong quite a few times throughout this past year about what I thought was going to happen. So I'm trying to be a little bit more conservative just because I don't have the confidence that I know exactly where things are going to be at the end of 2021. And I don't know what the government's going to do. I mean, they're printing money they, you know, like, how's that all going to play out? This is, like Tom likes to say, this is unprecedented.
I think there's some things that are long term. Potentially, they're testing out like almost universal income with these child tax credits and things like that. Mm-hmm. But it's going to pump a lot of money back into the economy. The average family is going to have several $1,000s more a year. If they were to extend this tax credit for $3,000 per child permanently. Average family has 2.5 children, for not every house has kids. I don't know how that works exactly, but, households that do have children under a certain age, I mean, that gives you the ability to spend more on your kids, put them in activities, better education. It's going to pump a lot of money into the economy. Good or bad, I don't know if we can afford it, tax wise, but I think we spend plenty of money on other things that I think you could make the case that it pays for itself and it's good for the economy long term. But it's definitely an experiment. We're going to see how this all plays out over the next couple of years as to how this money really does flow back into the economy, how it if some of these investments they're making now really do help us recover quicker, if more money in people's pockets does pay back in the into the economy. I think it will.
And things go in cycles. So it looks like the cycle is coming again where only one person works outside of the home. We have been on a 2-person outside of the home cycle for a while. And it looks like we're getting back to, because if we have enough money coming into a household, why would you have both people working outside of the home?
I still don't see that as likely. I think it takes about $67,000, what I've heard, to live in most places to have a middle-class lifestyle for a family. Minimum. That's minimum.
So if nobody's working, Matt, guess what happens? People get paid more. If only half of the amount of people are working. Right now, we're beginning to recognize that how fast are you having to raise wages? Sure. We're raising wages. And we are the lowest paid segment of the market. If we're having to raise, hard for me to believe that everybody isn't.
No, I think you're right. I think that's.
You see those cycles.
There's some truth to that. I don't see that. I don't see us getting away from 2-income families for a while, but it could.
Yeah, I don't see it coming. I don't see it in 2021, but the trend is definitely going that way. People are getting more used to being home. People don't want to go back to work. They've been at home. It's a new thing. And for sure, there are going to be fewer people that are outside of their home working. That's new. That's not going back.
As far as trends that I think our companies, need to look out for, I think is where do they fit into that, as far as how do they service people when they're home more, and how do we work around people more that lose me. How do we work around? Do I keep dropping this? Sorry, not sure what's going on.
Well, just your visual. Your audio is staying pretty good.
So, yeah, just the thought being that we do have to continue to adapt our service for this new world that we're in, and look at how we best service people.
Okay, Matt, we only have 1 more minute, and I do have a question that I wanted to ask you. Oh shoot, we're out of time. All right, we'll see if you can answer this really quick because I'm supposed to wrap it up. Right now, we thought that commercial properties were really going to open up. That was another thing, that you're going to be able to get commercial property really cheap, but it's not. What are you thinking about people having offices and moving away from offices, investing in an office? You got anything for us there?
I never think commercial properties are good investments personally, but that's That's my opinion. Unless you're to buy something, you get multiple tenants renting from you. It's, to me, I think it's a vanity purchase. You want to have your office exactly how you want it, and you're counting on appreciation versus cash flow. I like businesses that cash flow and pay for themselves, and I don't see commercial property as that kind of investment. You are locking in and controlling your cost, but oftentimes at a much higher price than you can for rent right now. Did you buy your building at some point? Yeah.
No, we don't. I do know two people that are right now looking at purchasing their buildings. That's why, and I told them that I would
look at it. If you can lock in your costs, and you know that you've got a long-term business, you've been in it for a while. It's it's good. I mean, I worked in an industry, in the airline industry, where I worked for a subcontractor called Republic Airways, where I want to kind of keep this brief, but I always kind of looked at it as like, if they just turned in all the airplanes tomorrow, cut their leases, no one would ever know they existed. It was like, it was all leased. It was like, and the reason I say that is that it's a lot easier to unwind your business if you have to, right? If you have a lot of commercial properties that you need to sell, everything that you have to sell at the end and all that stuff, that makes it more technical. Now, some people say having a property makes the business easier to sell and things like that, a location. I don't know. That makes sense when you have like a retail business or something like that, where location is so critical to customer flow and things like that. But for our businesses, it's hard to justify. Now, if you could buy a strip mall where you have multiple tenants in there and they're location dependent and they get tied into that, like, hey, this Mexican restaurant is this here, and they have their clientele that's in the neighborhood. That's great, and they're in your strip mall. That makes sense to me. But if you buy like a standalone building for your business, I see that more of I want to have this place be ours and be customized. Right. And potentially there might be some marketing at play if you can be on a busy corner. But I'm not a fan of standalone commercial businesses as far as investments. I don't think they generally. All right.
I'm taking that back to everybody. All right, we're running late. We're 3 minutes over. Sorry, Tom. We tried really hard. We had a lot to talk about today. Thanks, you guys. Tomorrow we're going to have Paul Freed and Rochelle Wilkinson on, talking about new markets and how you can leverage some new ideas. Talk to you guys later. Bye.